Hello everyone, I'm Jarnail Chudge, and with me virtually is my good friend and colleague Amos Miller. We're excited to be with you for this webinar on Microsoft Soundscape, heads up and hands-free experiences for everyone. For now, sit back and enjoy the video, and we'll join you in about half an hour for the live Q&A. During the video though, we will be monitoring the chat window for any questions, so please don't hesitate to get started.
Okay, welcome to the Soundscape webinar. I'm Amos Miller, I'm the product strategist for Microsoft Soundscape, and I'm joined here by my friend and colleague Jarnail Chudge. Jarnail and I are the co-founders of Soundscape in the Enable team in Microsoft Research. My interest is in technologies that augment human perception and the sensory interaction with the environment, with a particular interest in experiences for people with disabilities and different abilities. Okay, so here's the game plan. I'm going to start by introducing the challenge that our work on Soundscape is attempting to address, and walk you through some of the key elements of the solution to give you a good sense of what it's about. I'll then hand over to Jarnail, and he will walk you through the way that we've developed Soundscape in the wild with users. He'll discuss some of the really fascinating discoveries that we made along the way, and how we developed some of the principles that guide the Soundscape experience. And then we'll look forward and ask, what does this mean for the future of human empowerment and technology? So a lot to cover. This work started with a big question. The large majority of people who are blind or low vision in the world really do not enjoy the same level of freedom as everyone else. And even with all the great technology that's around, that is still a big challenge. And we really set out to explore how can we tap into advancements in technology, into new research in HCI, a new understanding of motor neuroscience, to make a material difference to people when they're out and about, to people who are blind when they're out and about. Really look at how technology not only help with navigation, but help them gain a sense of independence. At the heart of this quest, there's a set of words that we use to characterize the experience: presence, awareness, flow, words like agency, human agency, and control. And we may not be aware when these characteristics are present, but we surely do know when they are not present. Imagine for a moment when you're driving along, you've got some quiet classical music playing through your stereo, your kiddo is telling you about a difficult day that they had at school today. And then bam, your GPS comes in, 100 meters you have to turn left. Now you're faced with a stressful moment, working out what that last instruction meant and how you interpret it, and that magical moment is gone. Yep, we do know when that experience breaks down, and we also know that it doesn't really have to be that way. And that's what this talk is about. As a blind person, when I'm out and about, I do want the technology to help me navigate and feel more confident out there. But I also want it to empower me to be more aware of my environment, to be present with the people that I'm with, to feel a greater sense of empowerment. So let me first walk you through what Soundscape is, and then we can dive into how we address these challenges. So the idea with Soundscape is that we use 3D spatial audio to help you build a richer awareness of your surroundings when you're out and about. Spatial audio is really cool technology that with stereo headphones you can place sounds and audio cues that they sound like they come from the environment rather than inside your head. So for example, wearing a stereo headset with Soundscape on my phone, I can walk down the street, and if Starbucks is coming in front of me on the right, I'll hear the word Starbucks over there where Starbucks is, which is really cool. And I can hear exactly the direction that it's in. If I walk up to an intersection, I'll hear the name of the road on the left, way over there on the left, not in my ear or inside my head, but way over there on the left. I'll hear one in front of me, I'll hear one on the right, so I get the layout of the intersection as well as the names of the road, so I can make my navigation decision. Let's run a brief video to give you a sense for what that experience is like. The video is not going to be in stereo, so you won't hear spatial, but we'll provide links to the video so you can watch it afterwards as well with stereo headphones. Hello and welcome. We are going to demonstrate how I use Soundscape. I have my friend Emily here with me.
Hi there.
And my guide dog Trevor. You're going to hear and experience Soundscape in the same way that I do through these headsets. So let's go.
Facing north along 101st Avenue South.
So Emily, where should we go?
I hear there's a place called Local Burger nearby. Would you like to try it?
Let's do it. I'll set a beacon to it. Now I can hear the beacon over in front of us, and to our right, that's where the Local Burger is.
Excellent. That beacon's really helpful as I can't see past these trees.
Fantastic. So let's go there.
All right.
Instead of step-by-step instructions, Soundscape lets me hear where the destination is, so I can make my way there.
Main Street.
We're coming up
goes
to
left.
an intersection
Main Street
here.
goes right. Crossing.
Here's the crossing. Listen to the traffic. We safe to cross?
All right, and it's safe to cross.
France
Do it.
chocolates.
Hey, here's France chocolate over there.
Cantonetta.
Oh, perfect. We should set a marker there on our way back.
Now I can hear the beacon loud and clear on my right, so we'll turn right.
Facing north along
And
Main
here
Street.
it comes right in front of us, so we know we're walking straight towards it.
Forum Plaza.
On Main Street and straight
Pastel
towards the
Rear later
beacon.
today.
We're going to start hearing it coming on our left as we get close to the Local Burger.
Joseph Jewellery. Gilbert's on Main.
And
Beacon close by.
I can see the door.
here we are. Fantastic. Emily, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. Let me break it down. Soundscape is running on the phone, and it knows the person's location and the direction that they're facing, and it draws data of them from the map to work out what's in their surroundings, and then through the stereo headphones, it's able to place the callouts in 3D. Our work in MSR actually on spatial sound and head rotation transfer function that was led by 𝗹𝗶𝘀𝗁𝗲 has been a very foundational component of this work. And the headset is a really important piece here. First of all, we look for good stereo headsets, but importantly, headsets that don't block the environmental sound, so that you can hear everything around you while hearing the augmented sound. We also love head tracking headsets. These are headsets with sensors that track your head movement, and that enables us to improve the 3D image significantly by tracking small head movements, and also to ensure that the audio stage remains stable when you move your head. So for example, if Starbucks is over there and you've turned your head at 45 degrees in the other direction, Starbucks doesn't turn with you. Folks who are familiar with motor neuroscience will recognize how this mechanism leverages active inference in multi-sensory input. But put simply, our brain is just a natural when it comes to hearing spatial sound in the environment and using it for awareness and for movement and navigation. The Soundscape app is available on the App Store for anybody to use, and we encourage you to go and try it out. It's quite different from other navigation apps, but it's really simple and a lot of fun to use. You just put your stereo headphones on, start the app, and walk. You'll immediately start to get callouts in 3D around you. If you want to head somewhere specifically, you can search for that location. You set what we call a virtual audio beacon to that destination, and instead of turn-by-turn directions, you'll hear a bell emanating from that location so that you know where it is and you make your way there. And you'll notice when you walk, it doesn't demand your attention in any way. You can remain present in your surroundings, in your conversation with a friend, yet still be fully aware of where you're headed. So how and why did we arrive at the idea of using sound in this way? Let me hand over to Jarnail Chudge to share some fascinating insights.
Thank you, Amos. Hi, I'm Jarnail Chudge, and my background is in design and research. What particularly motivates and inspires me is designing empowering, sustainable and inclusive experiences which enhance human awareness, and which not only allow us to do more, but actually be more. So as Amos said, how and why did we arrive at using sound in this way? Well, ultimately, it comes down to the importance of getting out into the real world, with real people, and seeking to understand, right at the point of the experience, exactly what is going on. And through that design method, identifying gaps and possibilities and opportunities. And it was during one such research visit in the Temple Inn area of London, as these photos from the visit go to show. There's quite a group of us. Courtesy of the Guide Dogs NGO in the UK, we had some guide dog owners, some orientation and mobility specialists, a local travel guide, and of course a mix of researchers, designers and engineers from Microsoft. We spent the day immersed in the experience, and it was only a couple of days later, when Amos and I were reflecting on the visit, that we recalled a particular fountain. It's in the central picture, a lovely little fountain in a courtyard. And it suddenly dawned on us that we always knew where we were in relation to it, because sometimes we'd hear it ahead of us, or to the side, or coming from the back. And because of that, we always had our bearings, even if at the time we weren't fully conscious of that. And it was that experience and the impression it created that led us to really double down on looking at how we could use sound in a more natural and effortless way. It was really then that we threw ourselves into the design process, focusing on a range of different end-user activities, but always in the context of that end-to-end experience. We ran a series of workshops with a diverse group of participants, a little like the research visit, but this time, with each workshop getting tighter and tighter on the attributes of the experience and the scope. It was highly iterative and dynamic. We'd go down a particular route, get really excited about something, and then whatever it was didn't quite sync or feel right, and then we'd go back. But by allowing some time between each workshop, we gave ourselves a little bit of space to reflect, to reimagine, digest and absorb what we were doing, and come back to it again. And slowly but surely, the experience maps, the broad spectrum of people that we were considering, the actual interactions and information needs at any given step, all started to come together. And unusually for us, actually, our deliverable in the first instance was a 15-minute movie. And we set it about 5 or 7 years in the future, back when we actually did it. And we called it a family day out, because we wanted it to be about the normal, everyday activities of life. In this case, organising a day out in London. Our central character, Bill, actually played by a blind actor, is organising it for his young son and his elderly father-in-law. And over the course of the movie, as shown by the different scenes on the slide here, we see Bill deal with and handle a range of different situations. From travel disruption, they take a picnic in the park, do a spot of shopping, they visit the Natural History Museum, all the things that you'd expect really. But importantly, he's using technology naturally and effortlessly. And above all, the spatial sound that we've created is allowing him to be independent and engaged, and enriching his relationship with the spaces and the places that they're in throughout the whole day. One unusual artifact from doing a movie was actually writing a script for every scene, every interaction from the perspective of the different characters. It's not something that we typically do in UX or design, but it really forced us to think hard about every word and every action and how we tied it in to what it wanted to convey. It's a great way of actually paring the content down to that which is absolutely essential. However, we think that what really set this apart was that as a side project to the movie, we were determined to establish the feasibility of spatial audio. And remember, this was a good few years ago. And it's all very well depicting it in a positive light in a movie, but we wanted to feel confident that the technology itself that we were portraying was capable of coming together to deliver the experience that we were depicting. So we did a hack, way before hacking became the phenomenon it is now. So we got some big over-the-ear gamer headsets. We attached some sensors to the top of it so that we could track the movement of the head. We attached those sensors to a circuit board encased inside a little metal biscuit tin, as you see in the photos here. And finally, that circuit board was then tethered to a laptop held by another person. Not particularly portable, but with it, we were able to create this spatialized sound experience outside our offices. And Amos was able to take a walk from a bus stop to the entrance of Building 3, something he had never done before, all guided by sound. So, inspired by the movie and the prototype and the momentum that was beginning to build around the work, we set out to build the technology for real and sketched out a scope that involved a person travelling from their house in a residential neighbourhood, making their way to a bus stop, travelling on that bus into town where they would catch the train and then get a bite to eat. As part of the first phase of work, we created this small corridor between Reading, which is a small city to the west of London, and London itself, which we then instrumented with data and sensors and beacons and buses, a whole host of things, so that we could have an end-to-end experience that we could validate. And we worked closely with a number of internal and external collaborators to put it all together. And as we did, one thing that was foremost in our minds was finding the right balance between the human experience and the technology. We knew that the technologies that we were working with weren't yet quite ready for prime time, they weren't yet generally available, and not designed to do some of the things that we wanted to do with them. But we hacked our way around some of those challenges and reminded ourselves time and time again that whatever we did, always strive to keep that soul of the experience intact. As Amos said earlier, about being present, about being in the flow. And to that end, as a team, we immersed ourselves further in the experience of a blind traveller. We spent countless hours with mobility specialists and produced this enormous physio sheet, which ran, I think, about 10-15 meters wide, and for every single step of that journey. We atomically broke it down, and for each step there were 12 or so layers of information that provided a contextualized richness that really was quite unique. And as we completed phase 1, we worked with researchers at Guide Dogs to validate the end-to-end experience, as per the slide. So there were 17 measures in particular that they were interested in, to do with orientation, mobility, cognition, physiology, and so on. And we had 8 participants take part, and they were able to go deep and do a before and after analysis of their experience. So firstly, without the Soundscape technology to begin with, and then a week later, those researchers took those same people out again, but this time with Soundscape. And of their 17 measures, they found that 10 had shown a significant increase, and that the remaining 7 had either shown a slight improvement or remained the same. So from our perspective, that was great. It was probably the best we had hoped for. However, it was analysing their verbatim feedback that really acted as a challenge to us in terms of what we did next. Sure, spatial audio provided a richer experience which every person enjoyed, but it was their feedback that it made them feel more confident, it made them feel more connected and more present, that really made us sit up and take notice. It was those feelings and those sentiments that we felt we had to understand and deliver through Soundscape. So, in phase 2 of the work, we did a complete about turn on the paradigm that we were designing the experience to. We realised that we were making the experience better along already well-known routes, but for us, we felt that true empowerment could only come through a traveller being able to go where they wanted to go, on their own terms, and not being reliant on anyone else. So we moved away from the initial prescriptive turn-by-turn instructions that we were providing, and focused instead on providing a description of a person's environment. So with Soundscape, as Amos described, this works beautifully because the call-outs of these places come from the direction where they actually are in relation to you. So you just naturally, almost innately, begin to build an awareness of your surroundings. And with that mental map that's beginning to form, that confidence just emerges to be able to go where you want. Because you know, if you take a wrong turn, you'll just be able to recover and make your way back to a known place. So in phase 2, we invited 12 people into Reading. 8 of these participants had never been to the city before, and all of them Within the space of a couple of hours, were able to make their way around from the train station to a department store, a cafe, then across town to the town hall itself. And every one of them was able to accurately describe the spatial relationship between these different places. It was amazing. I mean, we saw their confidence visibly increase throughout the day. We saw them becoming more spontaneous and so much more willing to explore and learn about these new places. And we felt this was it. This was Soundscape. So, moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the work we've done to help us better understand the value that Soundscape can bring. And the way we approach this was through the lens of accessibility and inclusion. So clearly, accessibility is a responsibility, enforceable by law in many cases. There are over 1 billion people in the world who have disabilities, many of whom need assistive technology. But only 1 in 10 of those people have access to the products they need. And this means that they can't fully participate in our economies, in society, and accessible technology can allow that participation to take place. And we know that disability is something that can affect any of us or someone we love at any time. Whether it's permanent, in the case of a permanent with 1 arm, for example, temporary if a person has an arm injury and is using a sling, or situational, as in the case of a new parent holding the baby in 1 arm. The experience is the same. But accessibility can also be seen as an opportunity to develop and apply innovation that levels the playing field for everyone. So research, in this case from Accenture, indicates that organizations which are inclusive and value accessibility outperform their peers by quite a way. So 28% higher revenue, double the net income, and a profit margin that's 30% higher. So bottom line, accessibility and inclusion just makes good business sense. So, what have we been doing to help realize and demonstrate that opportunity for Soundscape? So being guided and informed by the building blocks of the Soundscape experience, about enhancing awareness, keeping you the person in control, allowing you to engage and connect through this innovative audio experience. So one of the aspects that really driving us is a desire to better understand the value that our customers and our partners see in Soundscape and in spatial audio in general. And based on that, we've actually embarked on a few adventures of our own. So currently, Soundscape is all about the outdoor experience, but of course, the indoor space beckons as well. We did a proof of concept about a year or so ago at King's Cross Station, where we integrated Soundscape with an indoor position technology to guide a person independently around a very busy train station. We learnt a lot from that experience, in particular the value that indoor venues such as shopping centres, supermarkets, transport hubs, etc. all place on creating a richer and more engaging experience. And as indoor positioning technology continues to mature, we see great potential for Soundscape to contribute to that space. So, on this slide here, our work at Skyview Visitor Attraction in Stockholm was really quite unique. Here, we worked to create an audio experience that used the familiar Soundscape beacon to guide a visitor to a landmark that they had chosen on the Stockholm skyline. And then once they were directly facing it, they heard that familiar bell sound. But then we virtually transported them as if they were there. So imagine they've selected the Royal Palace and they could directly hear what it's like during the changing of the guard ceremony. So you're in the middle of the crowd and you can hear the chitter-chatter all around you. Over to your right, the trumpeters are playing. Over to your left, you hear the neighing of the horses. It's just as if you're right there. So that's real 3D immersive audio that allows people to connect with places in a new and different way, to experience something that they hadn't really ever imagined. We've also been doing a lot of work in the area of adaptive sports. So what initially began as a hackathon project a couple of years ago is now turning into something that is allowing our partners to create their own bespoke experiences. Here, they were using Soundscape while paddling, making their way around the water with their companion, just enjoying the sun. And spatial audio and non-verbal cues don't compete with our cognitive ability to attend to a conversation or to a complex task such as paddling at the time. Ironically, or appropriately in many ways, each person was able to remain present and in complete flow. We had a lot of fun doing this work, and here's just a little snippet from the first time we introduced it to a group of volunteers.
Cindy, smiling and full of joy, coming back to shore.
So much fun!
I really appreciate the whole Soundscape team having all of us out today. I'm happy to be a part of a movement, and that is to help all of us live more independently and full and rich lives.
Amos, over to you now.
Jarnail, thank you. That was wonderful. We began the talk by looking at these characteristics of the experience which Jarnail touched upon. Presence, awareness, flow, agency. And you can see clearly that these are relevant to a whole range of experiences in human situations. I mean, we're all too familiar with the phone taking our attention away when we're out and about, or sitting around at the dinner table with our family. Even in navigation, we actually recently published an essay in Scientific American where we discuss how soundscapes-based audio guidance draws on our basic human skills for navigation, and in fact does a better job with awareness and mental mapping as compared with turn-by-turn directions. We also all spend a great deal of time in remote meetings these days, in front of a cluttered screen with voices that are mixed together and you can barely know who's speaking. With spatial audio, you can separate these voices out. You can feel more present with the people that you are in the meeting with and stay in flow and not constantly distracted. Augmented reality technologies, they bring huge potential to our human experience and draw on our ability to imagine. We actually recently added a beta feature to Soundscape that we call Street Preview, where you can transport yourself to anywhere in the world and experience the area in full spatial audio virtual reality. It really is an amazing experience. It engages your whole body and imagination. When we think about the devices that make their way into the fabric of our experience, we want these devices to support our human experience, to amplify it, not replace it or dampen our engagement. And this calls for further research in areas such as human perception, attention, how we manage attention and our awareness, questions that are related to agency and the characteristics of a technology that ultimately makes us more human. Jarnail.
Thank you, Amos. So, to sum things up a little bit, we'll share some of the key things that we've learned through our journey with Soundscape and what it may mean for evolving product and service design and research. So firstly, this has been greatly aided by the multidisciplinary and diverse team that we have. Wonderful collaborations with internal groups across Microsoft and with so many of our customers and partners as well. And also the amazing mentors that we've had and continue to have who have guided us along the way. From a creation point of view, the experience really is everything. So get out into that world of your users, learn who they are, what they do, what matters to them. Because it's only at the point of the experience that you'll discover just how diverse that whole ecosystem is and the context in which any particular interaction takes place. And then we can design for that. So we were fortunate too that the opportunity to make a real difference to real people provided a natural sense of purpose, and working within the constraints that we imposed actually acted as a catalyst for innovation. It created a space to explore and investigate and rapidly evolve our design thinking based on what we learned. And as we've seen time and time again, sometimes designing for the edge case, often in the area of disability, provides innovations for everyone. We've seen it with door handles, dropped curbs, magnetic zippers and so on. And now, perhaps we can add Soundscape to that list. So here, this is a wonderful image, isn't it? A group of people crossing an intersection while heads down on their phones. So whether we're out and about or at home or at work, having our heads buried in our phones, we're messaging, playing games, browsing social media, usually oblivious to our surroundings and the people that we're with, something I think that we can all agree is all too common and all too familiar. We all do it, and yes, often we don't like ourselves for doing it, but we think that with Soundscape there is a different way. What we feel that Soundscape is allowing us to do is to tap into our innate human potential and our desire to overcome our limits and grow. One where we're fully attentive to what we're doing while being aware of what's going on around us. So we've actually covered a lot of ground in this webinar, and we hope you've enjoyed it and are excited by the potential of Soundscape as we are. And it feels like we're only just scratching the surface of the power of sound. We know how important it is in how it makes us feel, the energy it creates, and how it connects with our other senses. And we also know the importance of creating silences, of gaps, for the sound and the meaning to come through. Ever so slightly biased, I know, but Soundscape really is quite a special experience. An experience that we feel, instead of reducing, will amplify and augment our capabilities as human beings. And getting closer to that vision of a heads-up, hands-free experience that feels natural and just flows with you. So on behalf of Amos and myself, thank you. Now please do stay for the live Q&A with Amos and myself, which will open in a second or two. Hello again. Thanks for attending the Microsoft Soundscape Heads Up and Hands-Free Experiences for Everyone webinar, and now to the live Q&A. So we said before, I'm Jarnail Chudge, and with me is Amos, and we're also joined by our colleague Emily Green as well, who has been looking at some of the questions that have been coming in. And over the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to be answering some of the ones that have been submitted by the audience. So yeah, we'll get started. And the first question, and we do get this a lot, is where is Soundscape currently available? And I can sort of take that. Soundscape's been out for a couple of years. Originally we launched in the UK and the US, and over the last couple of years we've since released and made Soundscape available in Australia, Canada, Sweden, France, Brazil, and very recently Italy. And our plan is to actually bring it to more countries, more places over the next 12 months or so. I think one of the reasons, and this leads to the other question that was also posted, because it was such new technology, we initially decided to focus on iOS. And as that feedback has been coming in, and we've been growing and refining the Soundscape experience, we get asked about availability on Android, and this is certainly something that we're looking at. Unfortunately, we don't have a time frame that we can share just yet, but rest assured we are looking at this, and it is part of our ambition to make Soundscape available to everyone, everywhere. Another question, Amos, I'm going to hand this over to you, is to do with sort of head tracking. A question was from Adrian Lawrence, and he asks, is head tracking already supported for the end user experience on the iOS app? And would it be supported by a proprietary headset?
Thank you, Jarnail. This is a great question. We talked about the importance of stereo headphones in the overall Soundscape experience to augment the environment around the person and really be able to place sounds in 3D relative to where you are and relative to where locations are in the environment. And indeed, the ability to head track, as in to monitor the direction of the head and position the sounds relative to the direction of your head rather than just the body, it really takes the experience to the next level. We've been working with a number of organizations, headset manufacturers, to kind of stimulate this category, if you like, of headset capabilities. Today, the iOS app supports head tracking with the AirPods Pro, with the Apple AirPods Pro, which about 6 months now are offering this capability. The first iteration of the Bose frames, the Bose Alto and Bose Rondo, also have head tracking sensors. The later generations at this stage do not support that capability. And that's an area, because of the real effectiveness of that experience, it's an area that is really building up momentum right now.
No, thank you, Amos. I'm actually going to pass on another question from Adrian to you as well. He asks, binaural cues might behave differently for different people due to psychological differences. And this might affect the perceived location of the virtual beacons, the audio beacons that we use in Soundscape. So are there options to personalize the 3D audio rendering? Which is, it's a great question.
So it's a really great question, and that's an area that we spend a lot of time in. There is currently in Soundscape, we don't offer personalization of what's called HRTF, which is the matrix that helps you adjust the sound based on your individual needs, for a variety of operational reasons more than anything else. But what we do in Soundscape is what we call double encode. We add additional information. So for people who don't necessarily hear the full spatial sound, maybe due to hearing loss, maybe due to different other characteristics, or even some people choose to use the mono speaker from the phone. So we build into the sound additional cues so that you can still detect the direction, for example, of the audio beacon by changing the percussive nature of the beacon as you point towards it or away from it. So it's a great question, multi-dimensional challenge, and we try to optimize for the range of needs in this space.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amos. We have a great question from John Drake as well, who asks, what do you see as the next steps, evolution of Soundscape, and where will it be in, say, 5 years' time? And I'll take a first stab at this, Amos, and then it'd be great to get your thoughts, because I know this is something that we often think about, talk about as well. And in many ways, I think we hinted at it a little bit towards the end of the video in the webinar, where we see enormous potential for this technology, in particular the ability that it provides, as we sort of say, to have a heads-up, hands-free experience. We recognize we're not there yet, but we definitely feel that that is the vision towards which we're working, and the capabilities and the experiences that we're designing for are all ultimately intended to help us accomplish that goal. And why is that so important to us? It's important because it allows us as humans then to be in a position where we're able to express ourselves without technology getting in the way. And technology is there to support and aid what we want to do, but it's not hogging the limelight. It's not the center of attention. It's allowing us, it's providing the means through which we can express ourselves. And with the vast amount of information that increasingly is available, our ability to be able to tap onto that contextually in a way that's relevant to where we are and what we're doing, we see that as having enormous potential for not just productivity, but for a whole host of enriching human experiences, all the way through to creativity, to expression, through social experiences, and so on. I could carry on for a long time, but I'm going to hand over to Amos.
I don't really have a great deal to add, Jarnail, other than to agree with what you said and to really, imagine that you do walk down the street and that device that enhances your awareness and keeps you connected to your environment and to your digital life is just not that thing that drags your attention and pulls you away from your conversation with your child as you walk down the street, but instead empowers you to be more human. I don't think it's out of reach, and I think we have a lot of evidence and experience to show that audio actually has a real potential. The audio field is so much wider than the field of vision, and there's so much more we can do with it that I think it's a really untapped potential, and we just see those experiences developing and the required technologies to support that.
And yeah, we both feel really fortunate to be able to work in this space where we do have the opportunity to explore this whole gamut of potential new experiences and what it will mean ultimately to human awareness and human consciousness and so on. So yeah, this is very, very exciting. We are very fortunate. Another question that was in the sort of channel was recently there have been a lot of announcements around spatial audio, and usually to do with entertainment, and whether it's listening to music or watching movies and so on. And of course, Soundscape is all about sort of navigation, wayfinding, I guess is the term that we prefer to use. Amos, I invite you to sort of take this. What do you see as the sort of differences, the parallels, the similarities between this, and what potentially does Soundscape have to offer here?
I think first of all, it's what we are seeing is evidence of spatial audio as a medium, as part of a design experience of an experience, starting to make it into the mainstream. Up until now, I mean, one of the first applications of spatial audio has been in fighter jet pilot cockpits, so that you can hear multiple radio channels concurrently and decide which one to attend. That's a very niche and very expensive application. And the fact that we are starting to see spatial audio making its way to some of our more mainstream day-to-day experiences is going to float all boats, and is a really, really important progression, I think, in this technology space. Media, entertainment, television, that's definitely an area that we've all lived in spatial audio, but we required large and expensive equipment to do that, and now with a pair of headphones you can achieve that. Soundscape, in the wayfinding and exploration and general awareness when you're out and about, you can call it augmented reality. Audio augmented reality is the space that Soundscape is really pushing into, and that applies that can apply in a range of scenarios that we talked a lot about in the talk. So yes, I think that this is an area that I urge, and we always enjoy hearing people's ideas and contributions about how this medium can be applied to a range of scenarios.
Great, thank you, Amos. And I'm just going to ask you to sort of double back to a previous question from Adrian, where it's just asking to elaborate a little bit further about what you mean by double encoding. And for example, would a sound be reaching a listener by mixing together the 3D binaural and a traditional stereo playback mode?
What I meant in double encoding is, for example, we still play the sound in binaural sound, but we also add, for example, if you listen to the beacon with Soundscape, if you are aware, if you're not pointing at the beacon, you'll hear a certain type of sound, and as you head to the center, the texture of the sound changes, and until you hit the middle and you get actually a bell reinforcement. And that's deliberately designed in order to, and that's what I meant by double encoding. We could just play the sound without any changes to the sound, and then you are totally reliant on hearing the spatial sound. With that additional double encoding, you can hear the spatial sound, but you also get additional reinforcement, and you can also only use that reinforcement without hearing the spatial sound. There is, one may require more cognitive load than the other, and our experience shows that if you hear the spatial sound and get that full experience, you can really park it to the periphery of your consciousness and not pay any great deal of attention to it, and that's the ideal experience. But there's definitely other ways to receive that information.
And Amos, I'm just going to ask you to elaborate on this further by talking about I guess the way that we approach and think about sound design and audio design in Soundscape, and why it is so important to us, and maybe some of the things that we've tried to incorporate into the sound design itself.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to live in sound, then the experience that you have, or the origin of it, is in sound. I mean, it's really interesting that it's so hard for us to stop looking at the screen. Well, not for me because I'm blind, but for sighted people, you know, every feature that you start to work on, the impulse is to go and figure out what the screen flow is going to be and which buttons you have to press and so on. And in Soundscape, we really say, hold on, let's start from the other end. Let's start from what is it going to sound like? How is it going to address the need of the user in a particular situation? And what is the flow of the sound going to be so it is supporting the experience, the minimum interruption, so that it doesn't demand attention or demands as little attention as possible. That the handoffs between one step and the next step flow well for the user. And only once we nail that flow do we start working backwards from that and figure out, okay, how is the user going to initiate that experience, how they personalize that, and so forth. We really, you know, we try to use non-verbal cues, for example, where possible, which are they require they don't require mental processing if they are really natural and easy to interpret. We try to maximize the use of the spatial sound where possible, again, so that people can hear but not attend to what they're hearing if they're in the middle of a conversation with somebody else. So a whole range of these nuances and considerations that we spend a lot of time defining as we work through the design in Soundscape.
And yeah, and I guess just to sort of add to that, we don't purport to have cracked it. For us, this is as much a learning experience as it is for the folks who are using Soundscape. And the feedback that we get helps us to continue refine and improve that experience by learning what people are doing out there in the real world. Just a couple of other areas I wanted to sort of cover off as well. It was a question about sort of computer vision. There's a question about the sensors that are increasingly coming to devices, and what role do you see potentially Soundscape having with that in the future? Amos, I'm going to pass that over to you.
Yeah, I mean, anything we can get hold of to get for the device to get a better sense of the environment around you, and the information that you might want to have, the more the merrier. And our job is to ensure that you receive it and process it in the way that is most effective for you. So indeed, I mean, computer vision is an obvious space to start leveraging, and other sensors like LiDAR and other capabilities that are really starting again to make their way into the mainstream and don't require absurd level amounts of power. I mean, one of the things that we care a lot about in Soundscape is that it's accessible to as many people as possible, and that it uses the underlying technologies that people can get and realistically use. It wouldn't help if we use something that drained your battery within an hour, unless it was for very specific moments. So we take all of those sort of trade-offs into account as we work with the team and other members in the Microsoft Research Group and in academia to really understand what are the possibilities that we can enhance this space.
Great, no, thank you, Amos. And it looks as if we've got time for just one more question today, which is, I guess, what excites us most about some of the work we're currently doing, and I'm sort of happy to take that and Amos have you add to it as well. I think one of the areas that we're really excited by is, and we hinted at it in the presentation, is the work that we're doing with that's designed to enable the collaborators that we work with, service providers. So for instance, we're working very closely with the orientation and mobility community. We're working very closely with adaptive sports. We're working very closely with service providers in a range of different environments and sectors, if you will, and ultimately working with them to look at how they can bring Soundscape to their landscape, their environment, the service experiences that they're responsible for, and ultimately thinking about it in a way that allows others to create their own soundscape-inspired experiences. Amos, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we do this because we are excited with what Soundscape is doing with people. When people first use Soundscape, it's a very new experience. They put it on, they put the headset on, they kind of look a little bit puzzled until they get it, and all of a sudden that huge smile comes onto their face, because it's something that is until you feel it, you don't quite realize what the experience would be like. I mean, then the things that you can do with this kind of input and this kind of way of conveying information. I do dabble, I would say, in adaptive sports, in kayaking and downhill skiing and so on. And the possibilities that the ability of sound guided experiences, or sound guidance rather, to help to enable me to be and feel independent, have that sense that I'm the one that's driving, that's steering the kayak or deciding how to zigzag on the slope of the mountain. That's that feeling that we always aspire to and get excited when we see it happening in the real world.
Thank you, Amos. We're just going to squeeze in one more question from 𝗹𝗶𝘀𝘁𝗂𝗿𝗰𝗲. And she's wondering about the future possibilities of augmenting Soundscape, explicitly for hearing aid and cochlear implant users. And just to sort of very quickly respond to that, it's a great question. And yes, ultimately, we do see future trends where existing devices will have additional sensors and the ability to be incorporated into with Soundscape. We think will enhance that experience even further. We know that some of those capabilities already exist, and we do anticipate more and more of them becoming more and more mainstream. So with that, thank you all for attending today. We really appreciate your participation and interest in this subject. Questions that you've provided us with have been excellent. And if you're interested in learning more, we do hope that we've got the list of resources sent out properly inside the chat window now. And we look forward to kind of seeing and hearing how you build on this research and evolve the space of audio AR. Ultimately, we hope in support of amplifying the natural human capabilities that we have and creating a whole new set of experiences to empower everyone. Thank you.